Good afternoon, friends. Thank you for being here so we can thank God for a beautiful life. My name is William Evertsberg. I'm one of the pastors here at Kenilworth Union. Bai and Sue were my good friends. The family invite you to a reception at an Indian Hill Club right after this service. Friends, Jesus said, "I am the resurrection and the life. If anyone believeth in me, though he die, yet shall he live. And whosoever believeth in me shall never die. Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." Friends, our help is in the name of the Lord, who made heaven and earth. The Lord giveth, and the Lord taketh away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Marcy?
Aloha and welcome. On behalf of myself, my sister Cindy, my brother Scott, and our entire family, thank you. Thank you for joining us today as we remember and celebrate our father, Bai Dickus. Although it doesn't feel much like Hawaii right now and sure doesn't look like it outside, I'd like to think that the Aloha spirit is with us all today. Because you see, the Hawaii's Big Island held a very special place in Bai's heart. Whether driving up the Kona coast to Hawaii, King Kamehameha's birthplace, for lunch at the Bamboo House, or enjoying Sue's famous macadamia nut waffles, or hiking down to the black sand beaches, Bai wanted to share his Hawaii with everyone. Chi-chis and warm macadamia nuts on the lanai, anyone? Some of you may have had the opportunity to experience that. That's who Dad was. He wasn't a big collector of things, but rather a collector of people, places, and experiences. He was a community builder, a collaborator, a connector. It wasn't just enough to tell you about something he was extremely passionate about, perhaps croquet. He wanted everyone to enthusiastically join in and experience it as well. Which brings me back to aloha. To Hawaiians, aloha is much more than a word. It encompasses an approach to life. It is the spirit of love, peace, grace, and kindness. It's also used as a farewell. However, it is never used as goodbye. Rather, till we meet again. So, Dad, aloha.
Joyful, joyful, we are joy. Rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I will say rejoice. Let your gentleness be known to everyone. The Lord is near. Do not worry about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Jesus Christ. Finally, beloved, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is pleasing, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, and if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things. Keep on doing the things that you have learned and received and heard and seen in me, and the God of peace will be with you.
To know By, enjoy his friendship, and work with him was both an honor and a privilege. By was the perfect friend for all of us. We can all treasure our friendship with By and his ability to listen and offer advice when asked. By was, as the saying goes, one of a kind, and we were all privileged to call him our friend. My first meeting with By was in about 1973 or 74. We were a small group of prospective members who were going to join, we hoped, the Indian Hill Club. We chatted for a bit, made a few comments back and forth, but never had a serious conversation. A short time later, I was on an airplane flying to Modesto, California. Modesto is in the San Joaquin Valley, about 90 miles southeast of San Francisco. As I was getting off the plane, who should be standing next to me getting out? By Dickus. And I asked, why are you going to Modesto, California? And he said, well, I'm looking into the wine business, one of the many things that he looked into. We both laughed, and that was the beginning of our long friendship lasting more than 50 years. I'm sure all of you know By was raised on a farm in Indiana, and they didn't have electricity, and oftentimes he would have to do his studies in high school by candlelight. By graduated from Purdue, received a master's degree from Harvard in agribusiness, and he may be the only person that we will ever know that studied by candlelight in high school, graduated from Purdue, and received a master's degree from Harvard. One thing for sure, though, he didn't get a degree in sheep shearing. And maybe you've all heard his stories about sheep shearing, and I will just paraphrase a little bit. No sheep was left bleeding, no sheep died, but he was never asked to come back and shear sheep again. When we first met By, he was in the macadamia business. And as Marcy said, he loved Hawaii, and he invited several of us to Hawaii to view and see all of his macadamia trees and hopefully buy a home in Hawaii and then have a trip to Hawaii to see the macadamia nuts and have a place to stay. Well, I think we walked the orchard for hours, and I don't know how many trees were there, but I kept telling him there had to be 117,000 of them or more. And believe me, it was an interesting trip to be with By and look at potential locations for a home at Mauna Kea. Well, we all were excited. And then when we got on the plane and sobered up, several of us thought, you know, we just can't do this. We have a home here, a home there, and what have you. So we decided that we just couldn't make it go, and we backed away from it. By enticed other friends, and they built a magnificent home overlooking the 7th Green at Mauna Kea. And to our great pleasure, we enjoyed visiting him many, many times there, and always had a good time. I'm going to relate one story that we laughed about for years afterwards. During a cocktail hour one night, I think or somebody said, "Do you think anybody could ever hit a chip shot to the 7th green from the patio, the house patio?" Well, it stopped there. Nobody thought about anything. A couple of days later, we were ready to leave, and we're all dressed up in our sport coats and ties. That's when we traveled, with coat and tie. And somebody mentioned hitting the green from the patio. Well, we all quickly went to the car, grabbed a club out of our golf bag, coat and tie on, and we went back to the patio and started hitting chip shots to the green. Well, some of them made the green, some of them made the apron, some of them made the fairway. But there were a number of golf balls out there. And just as we finished, a group of players came from around the dog leg and saw all these balls on the green. And we could hear them talking, but couldn't understand a word because they were of Asian descent. And all we know is that they didn't see us, but we saw them. So we laughed about that and wondered if they would ever complain to the Mauna Kea management and would get thrown out of the house. It never happened. At least if it did, he didn't tell us. And Sue, and I mentioned Sue here because they were a team. They were involved in everything, every way, to the fullest extent. And Sue, about 30 or more years ago, started a Great Decisions group that met to discuss the Great Decisions book that came out annually on world affairs, and we would meet in our neighbors' home, our partners' homes, and then have dinner following. When and Sue bought their home in Florida, they decided that they would like to start a Great Decisions group at the Country Club of Florida. Well, we couldn't make it a discussion group because there were just too many with all the 300 and some members. So it became a lecture series or a discussion series. And it has been phenomenally popular. And we've had such distinguished guests as Attorney General Barr and most recently Vice President Pence. And for all of this, we have to thank and Sue for starting this wonderful program at the Country Club, which many, many people enjoy. In 1988, Jeannie and I traveled to China with and Sue and Chris and Ferris Chesley. And they told us that at some time during the trip, they were going to leave and go to Tibet. We were on a ferry on the Yangtze River, and we were coming up to a stop at a local port, and they announced that this is where we get off, and we're going to meet our guide here, and we will see you back in Chicago. Well, I can tell you what was going through my mind, and I'm sure it was in Jeannie's and others. We weren't sure we'd ever see them again. There was a mass of people, they disappeared into them, and that was the last we saw until we met them again in Chicago. We traveled a great deal with and Sue, and whenever we did, and I always had a portable backgammon board. And we would play backgammon in every facility or every town, every city we were in. And the winner was then the champion of Shanghai, the champion of whatever. Well, I want to tell you right now, was the champion of the world. And when bought his home in Florida, he was very proud of his home, but he was more proud of the 17 varieties of palm trees around the home, some of which he planted and every one of which he wanted to describe in full detail to anyone who would listen. But By's real tribute or contribution, call it whatever you want, he involved and wanted to get everyone involved in croquet. And he convinced, and he could convince. He convinced the board to expand the croquet facility at the Country Club of Florida. And today it's a magnificent court, 3 of them. They have a wonderful time. It's busy most of the week with men's events, women's events, joint events and so forth, and he just gets a great deal of pleasure out of it, and so do the members who play it. But anyway, after Sue passed away, By moved into the Presbyterian home. And sure enough, as you would guess, he wanted to start a croquet court at the Presbyterian home. And we talked about it, but he said, I've got a problem. And I said, well, what is that? He said, well, when we're not playing, I've got to remove all the wickets and cover the holes and so forth, because it's also a walking area for the members. And he said, someday I'd like to have a croquet court set aside at the Presbyterian home, and my hope is that that may come to fruition at some point in time. Sundays were a special time for By and Jeannie and I after Sue's passing. We would pick him up and we would go to church. And then we would go to the Ocean Club if the weather was right, or back to the country club for brunch. And it was those times that we were able to share some deep inner thoughts, family purpose, family issues, and what have you. And it was a marvelous thing for By and very rewarding for Jeannie and me. We have all lost a dear friend. And when I say lost a dear friend, I don't say that we've lost something because we gained something by knowing him. We've all benefited from the experience of knowing this wonderful person. And we've benefited from the activities which he encouraged us to participate. We have felt a void since his passing, and we expect that you have too. But we all know that he is with Sue, and most likely organizing a croquet game in heaven. And my guess is one will happen there sooner than later. To describe By in a few words, I would say genuine, dynamic, enthusiastic, and loyal. He was a friend forever. We benefited from his friendship, and I want to thank the family, the children, the grandchildren, for asking me to say a few words. God bless you all.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Rich Nicolaides, By's grandson, and I'm honored to have a few minutes to share with you a few stories about my grandfather, Papa. It's hard to put into words what he meant to me and my cousins and siblings. He was one of the kindest, most generous, and loving people I've ever known, and we are truly incredibly lucky to have had a grandfather such as Papa. As Ed mentioned, By's story is truly incredible. He was born and raised on a farm in Huntertown, Indiana, graduated from Purdue with a major in animal husbandry, served a 10-year as a naval officer, MBA from Harvard, incredibly successful professional career, and patriarch of an amazing family. To his grandchildren, he wasn't just a grandfather. He was a role model, a mentor, a croquet adversary, and a friend. To Papa, family was the most important thing. As a result, we spent countless holidays together, summers up at Clear Lake, spring break at By and Sue's house at the Country Club of Florida, birthday trips, and Christmases at the Mauna Kea, his favorite place, eating macadamia nuts and enjoying the daily sunset cocktail hour. Needless to say, there were plenty of opportunities to learn life lessons from Papa. Everything from hard work, perseverance, the importance of preparation, and once as a 13-year-old on the drive to Lake Forest to play golf at Old Elm, the differences between an S Corp and a C Corp. All the things you'd expect to learn from someone as talented and as successful as By. I would like to share a few other life lessons that us grandkids learned from By. Number one, think very hard before you give your croquet opponent too many bisques. Papa loved croquet and loved to share the talent with all of us. We grandkids began playing at an early age. To stay competitive, he would give us do-over shots or bisques. As we got older and our skills started to converge, we no longer needed the bisques. However, sometimes Papa would forget, we'd win, and then receive a very tense, nice game from By. Number two, While as a teenager using a long putter is not particularly fashionable or cool, if you can sink a 30-foot putt on the 18th green at St. Andrews, you've earned the right. Number 3, always check your ticket before you get on the train. When my brother Will was 10 years old, him and Papa accidentally boarded an overnight Amtrak train heading for Phoenix instead of the intended destination of Denver. This mistake resulted in borderline vagrancy and a midnight hitchhiking adventure. Number 4, do not ride indoor water park slides shortly after receiving very expensive new dental implants. Fitz and Papa attended a water park for his birthday trip one year, and while Papa didn't want to go down the big slide, Fitz convinced him to, and when they popped out at the bottom of the slide, one of Papa's tooths was lost. They spent the rest of the afternoon with goggles searching the bottom of the lazy river for his tooth, unsuccessfully. Number 5, girls can be braver than boys. An annual tradition at Clear Lake was the overnight camp out in the woods across the street. Coincidentally, almost every time we picked a night on any particular summer, it also happened to be the stormiest night of the year. And one year, it was particularly stormy, and shortly after having s'mores at the campfire, my brother and I got scared, decided to go back and sleep inside, but Keely and Lily insisted on braving the storm, spending the whole night in the tent with Papa. And finally, number 6, when landscaping, it is essential to select vegetation that is suitable for the local climate. As Ed mentioned, Papa loved his palm tree collection. He would routinely give tours of the collection to anyone asked or anyone who didn't ask. Katie calculated at one point that Papa had something of 10% of the world's known palm species at his home. However, not all of them thrived in their new home, since swampy Florida weather is not, in fact, ideal for every type of palm tree. It was always interesting that Papa, an agricultural expert, could not understand why his desert palm refused to adapt to daily watering in swampy Florida. So it is difficult in just a few minutes to share with you all the wonderful memories that we had spending time with Papa, the things we did together and the lessons we learned. He was a wonderful grandfather, and he has had and will continue to have a significant impact on my life. Thank you.
In a room full of people, our dad stood out. His background and experiences were just so unique and shaped who he was. He was a genuinely interesting person, and also always interested in you. My grandfather, Fred Dickus, told me we were so poor, but we didn't know it because all our neighbors were poor too. Obviously not worried about keeping up with the Kardashians. Living in a house without electricity or indoor plumbing, Fred and Irma welcomed our dad in March of 1934. What the Dickus family lacked in material possessions, they more than made up for with love. The oldest of 4 children and living near cousins, aunts, uncles, grandparents, the importance of family, and particularly his relationship with his grandparents, influenced his desire to maintain close family and extended family relationships the rest of his life. As an aside, his cousins included Debbie, Daryl, Dwayne, David, Diana, and yes, Dick Dickus. So thank you, Mom, for protecting us from that double D name game. There's no shortage of things on the farm, and Dad had significant responsibilities from a very early age. He simply just worked all the time. In current society, some of his childhood experiences are frankly hard to believe, and I'll mention a few that stand out. Starting in grade school, he milked cows every morning, both before school and again in the afternoon. When there was a family medical emergency at age 8, he drove himself in the middle of the night to summon the local doctor. Breeding and raising livestock, including a grand champion ewe. With this background, it's easy to see why our dad believes strongly in equal opportunity, but also individual responsibility. family, work ethic, service, treating everyone with respect and dignity, no matter their background, all guiding principles which he lived by and he passed down to his children and his grandchildren. Dad was very proud to serve in the Navy. While he didn't share a lot of stories, one event stood out as one of his most special memories. He served on a newly commissioned aircraft carrier, the USS Ranger, and was on the inaugural shakedown cruise. As I understand it, the ship sailed at 30 knots for 24 hours straight, simulating combat operations so the sailors could identify anything that was not working properly. At night, in the middle of the ocean, on a perfectly smooth sea under the scars, the ocean reflecting the heavens above, and the Ranger's massive wake ribboning as far as he could see. He said that's the most beautiful thing he ever saw. Our parents were thrifty. Dad's garage door didn't have an automatic garage door opener. His car, of course, purchased used, was an Oldsmobile Toronado. It had several special details, including a non-functioning gas tank gauge. Yes, Marcy ran out of gas regularly, to which Dad would say, well, Marcy, I wrote down the mileage the last time I filled it up. The car had such a bad case of engine knocking that it was basically impossible to shut off. So here's Dad in the garage in the winter, waiting for his car to stop running so he can close the garage door. Saturdays were family work days, usually in the yard. Our dad had a special work outfit. It was a blue jean suit with matching denim jacket and pants. 20-year-old leather boots, thick leather gloves, and if it was cold, a black knit cap and a special farm jacket, which included the slow-moving vehicle triangle in the back to make it easier for cars to see him when he was on his tractor, which, of course, very helpful in Winnetka. So after the family workday, being ever efficient, he would say, maybe I'll get a jog in now, in his boots with the slow-moving vehicle farm jacket on. Pretty sure Winnetka hasn't seen that since. Our dad enjoyed speaking with everyone, whether it was showing up with a bowl of popcorn unannounced and starting a ping-pong tournament with my friends, talking grain prices at the elevator with a local farmer, or talking to employees at a business that he invested in. He was genuinely interested in getting to know the people around him. And yes, at times it could feel like an interrogation at our family dinners, and we would joke about spotlight is now moving to Cindy. Shortly before passing away, he found a quiet time to jot down a few milestones. He left the notes in his desk, and we found them after his passing. The chronological list, in part, in his own hand, reads, loving family, no electricity or plumbing. Grand Champion U, Huntertown High Class President, Alpha Gamma Rho Fraternity President, Sheep Barn, which Ed informed us he's obviously practicing shearing at. President of Purdue Student Union, Metsu, Iron Key Holder, serving on the Ranger and on the Admiral staff. Harvard Business School, Marcy, Cindy, Scott, Chase Franklin and McLagan Partners, Winnetka, Indian Hill, Hawaii, Country Club of Florida. What a life.
So this is Somewhere Over Rainbow, the Israel Kamakowibiel version. Which is beautiful. This is quite late, guys. It's beautiful. I've had a lot on me before. This one takes the cake. All right. There.
My friends Marcia and Louise were always throwing these splendid dinner parties, and they would invite my wife Kathy and me, and sometimes By and Sue. And whenever I first arrived at one of these spectacular soirees, I instantly scanned the room hunting for By, because it was he I wanted to share dinner conversation with, because he was so smart and so erudite, and he was always reading the most interesting books, and I knew the conversation would rise above the level of the weather and the Cubs. You've heard his family remember him. They described By to me as both interesting and interested, and that's a great combination. You know, as you've heard, he could hold forth on all kinds of interesting subjects and teach you something you needed to know. But when he was finished with that, he would listen hard to you and figure out what he could learn from you. Those kind of folk are social gorilla glue. And what made By so interesting, I think, was that comprehensive two-part education at Purdue and Harvard. At Purdue, where he was president of everything, as you heard, Iron Key, he learned how to dig his hands in the dirt and coax the fecund Hawaii or Florida soil to produce magnificent, living, growing, thriving things like macadamia nuts and oranges, which not only keep us alive, but enrich our daily existence. Now, growing up on the farm with all those cattle and hogs, as you've heard, By probably knew most of what Purdue wanted to teach him when he arrived, and yet by the end he had leveraged that splendid agricultural education and become a magnet of the American soil. You know how much I love all of you, but you all work at the bank or the law firm, which is fine, but you meet so few people around here who actually make anything or grow anything. And By grew things. And then when he learned everything he could from Purdue, he served his country with the U.S. Navy, and then he matriculated, as you've heard, at Harvard Business School, which accepted him, of course, because he had recommendations from the Admiral of the United States Navy and the President of Purdue. And he learned how to grow more things, lucrative, thriving businesses which met the daily caloric needs of the entire world. But I love the way the family talked about his accomplishments in West Lafayette. All these things he did and won at. The most spectacular achievement he accomplished at Purdue was meeting the love of his life. They were married on September 14, 1957. I was 28 days old. By and Sue were married almost as long as I have been alive. And I'm old. No, I know this is a sad time because we lost him so precipitously and unexpectedly, and yet 90 years bursting with joy and productivity, never sitting still, 65-year love affair, as they say, sign me up. And as if all that weren't enough, yet more. Because the promise of our faith in both the Hebrew and the Christian scriptures is that the world we can see with our eyes and touch with our hands is not all the world there is. Just past the river Styx lie the Elysian fields. Somewhere over the rainbow, blue skies. A beauty east of the sun and west of the moon. A joy beyond the walls of this world more poignant than grief. A world of glad reunion with those we've loved and lost. Someone put it like this: what's lost is nothing to what's found, and all the death that ever was, set next to life, would scarcely fill a cup. We find by losing, we hold fast by letting go, we become something new by ceasing to be something old. And I know no more about the far side of death than I ever knew, but I begin to know I do not need to know. God knows, and that's all that matters. And so thanks be to God for life. Long life, 90 years of life. Packed, productive, prosperous, principled life. 65 years with his beloved partner. 3 loyal children, 7 charming grandchildren, 2 adorable greats. The Boilermakers, the Crimson, the USS Ranger, Florida with its coasts and orchards, and Hawaii with its groves and lava. Clear Lake, Indiana. Thanks be to God for God's gift to us of Byram E. Dickus. Thanks be to God for life beyond life. Pray with me. Now into your hands, most merciful Savior, we commend your servant Byram E. Dickus, a sheep of your own flock, a lamb of your own fold, a sinner of your own redeeming. Receive him into the arms of your mercy, into the blessed rest of everlasting peace, and into the glorious company of the saints in light. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for having us today. It is our great honor to be here. Those who are physically able to comfortably stand are asked to please rise for military honors. If any of you have served, I invite you to join me in rendering a final salute when taps is sounded. States Navy, and a grateful nation. Please accept this flag in recognition of his honorable and faithful service to our country. And salute. Two. Great privilege to be here today. Detail left, face, forward, march.
Friends, after the night comes the day, after the winter, the spring, after the storm, the rainbow, after defeat, another chance, after a mistake, forgiveness, after the cross, the open tomb, after death comes life. Go in peace to serve and love the Lord. Amen.